Good evening and welcome to Hairenik Media Newscast. This year's commemoration of the 110th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide is marked not only by remembrance of the past, but also by deep sorrow over a recent tragedy. 2 years ago, the Armenians of Artsakh suffered a genocidal blockade, deprived of food and medicine, culminating in mass ethnic cleansing by Azerbaijan. In just a week, Artsakh was emptied of Armenians. This tragedy echoes the genocide of 1915, reminding us that genocide pursued for profit are still genocide and justice remains due. Various commemorative activities and events were held in the region, including Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Michigan, and Illinois. Hairenik Media will feature a special episode highlighting its extensive coverage of the commemoration events in the region. In Yerevan, the Armenian Revolutionary Federation youth led the traditional Torchlight March to honor the 1.5 million genocide victims. With Turkish and Azerbaijani flags burned in symbolic defiance, thousands of Armenians carried torches and Armenian flags from the Republic Square toward the Dzizernagapert Memorial, demanding recognition and accountability. A bold banner declared, "We will return," emphasizing the enduring spirit of the Armenian people. Yerevan Manukyan, ARF Armenia Supreme Council member and member of the opposition Armenia Alliance, highlighted the plight of Armenians in Artsakh, noting the devastating impact of Azerbaijan's actions. He criticized the silence of Yerevan's authorities, suggesting they were compromising national memory for diplomatic gains. Manukyan called for Turkey to formally recognize the Armenian genocide, insisting that the memory of this tragedy should not be treated as a commodity by those in power. His Holiness Karekin II, Catholicos of all Armenians, along with clergy, visited the Dzizernagapert Memorial Complex on April 24, offering prayers and floral tributes. On the same day, His Holiness Aram I of the Great House of Cilicia called for Armenian unity across the diaspora and the homeland to strengthen the nation in honor of the martyrs. The Catholicos cautioned that Armenia's independence is being compromised by a policy of excessive concessions and caution. On April 22, the Armenia parliamentary faction formally introduced a draft bill to the National Assembly aimed at criminalizing the denial, trivialization, and justification of the Armenian genocide. This initiative responds to ongoing denial by the Turkish state and reflects frustration over the Armenian government's reluctance to address this issue. Ishkhan Saghatelian, representative of the ARF Supreme Council of Armenia and member of the Armenia Alliance, stated that the authorities face a decisive choice: to support the bill and reject genocide denial, or to oppose it and endorse policies that legitimize such denial. During the debate on the bill, tensions escalated into a heated exchange between the ruling Civil Contract Party and opposition lawmakers, developing into a physical altercation. The faction secretary Artsakh Minasyan stated that this initiative pertains to national memory, dignity, and identity, and represents a challenge from Armenia's adversaries, emphasizing that each side must make its own choice. Minasyan confirmed that the draft law is primarily aimed at the parliamentary majority, which makes decisions on behalf of Armenia. Commenting on the turmoil and conflict that erupted in the National Assembly following the announcement of the Armenian Genocide Initiative, Ishkhan Saghatelian described the authorities' stance towards the ARF as predictable. He characterized the current government as a Turkish puppet regime and deemed it anti-national and unpopular in terms of Armenian unity. Saghatelian affirmed that the ARF stands in fundamental ideological opposition to these authorities, asserting that the conflict between the ARF and pro-government deputies is not personal, but stems from deeper ideological disagreements. The National Assembly of Artsakh condemned ongoing acts by Azerbaijan as a continuation of the 1915 genocide. It declared the blockade's displacement and cultural erasure in Artsakh between 2020 and 2023 to be modern genocide under international law. The statement stressed that silence invites more genocide and warned against the unclear position of Armenia's current leadership. In the U.S. Capitol on April 24, President Trump failed to use the word genocide in his Remembrance message. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, however, strongly condemned genocide denial and emphasized the importance of remembering the facts. The Armenian National Committee of America criticized President Trump's omission, possibly made at Armenia's own request, calling it shameful and politically motivated. During his 2024 presidential campaign, President Trump pledged to resolve peace in the South Caucasus and stop the violence and ethnic cleansing. His failure to use the word genocide, under foreign pressure, now stands in direct contradiction to that promise. Senator Adam Schiff blasted President Trump for omitting the term genocide on April 24. Schiff emphasized the importance of calling out denial and called on the U.S. to support Armenia, demand the release of hostages, and protect Armenian heritage. He also highlighted the historic 2019 congressional recognition of the genocide and President Biden's landmark recognition in 2021. From Baku, former Artsakh Foreign Minister David Babayan sent a voice message denouncing Azerbaijani propaganda. Despite captivity, he affirmed spiritual solidarity with Armenians on this day of remembrance. Nikitas Kaklamani, Speaker of the Hellenic Parliament, issued a powerful message linking Armenian and Greek tragedies, condemning Turkey's ongoing denial of the historical truth 110 years later. The speaker described the Armenian genocide as one of the darkest pages in human history and stressed the responsibility to honor the memory of Armenians, Asia Minor Greeks, Pontic Greeks, and Cypriots. Kaklamanis highlighted the importance of resisting historical falsification, particularly in light of Turkey's continued denial. President Samvel Shahramanian of Artsakh met with the Committee for the Protection of Artsakh's People to discuss urgent demands including the right of return, the release of captives, cultural preservation, and social assistance. The tent-based movement in Yerevan continues, holding dialogues with civil and political groups. Tensions remain high along the Armenia-Azerbaijan border. On April 23rd, the European Union monitoring mission in Armenia confirmed that Azerbaijani forces shelled the Armenian village of Khoznavar in Syunik province, damaging a home. Fortunately, no casualties were reported. Residents remain alarmed as official responses remain muted. Dikran Abrahamyan, an MP from the opposition with Honor faction, warned the Azerbaijani attacks along Armenia's borders are increasingly targeted and deliberate. He criticized the Armenian government's weak response, noting that border communities feel abandoned and vulnerable. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan announced his belief that Armenia's new constitution should not reference the Declaration of Independence, a demand being pushed by Baku as a condition for a peace deal. Armenia's Declaration of Independence, adopted in 1990, makes reference to the need for unification of Armenia and Artsakh. That provision of the declaration is also mentioned in Armenia's current constitution. Pashinyan's statements prompted opposition leaders to insist that he was willing to concede to Azerbaijan's demands. Artur Khachadrian, a member of the opposition Hayastan Alliance, announced that Pashinyan is ready to make any concessions, as he has done since November 2020, in order to cling to power. A candlelight vigil was held to commemorate the third anniversary of Sona Mnatsakanyan's tragic death. Mnatsakanyan, who was pregnant at the time, lost her life in 2022 when she was struck by a vehicle from Nikol Pashinyan's convoy, which left the scene without stopping. 3 years have passed since the incident, yet the case remains under investigation in court. To date, no one has been held accountable or prosecuted, leaving her family still seeking justice. Mourners lit candles, laid flowers, and carried signs demanding justice, highlighting the ongoing pain of Sona's family and the public's frustration with government impunity. The raising of the Artsakh flag by Armenian clergymen during the Easter Vigil at the Church of Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem sparked outrage among Yerevan's authorities. Daron Chachoyan, Deputy Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister of Armenia, expressed concerns that the sight of Armenian clergymen with the Artsakh flag could suggest preparations for a new war. He questioned, by waving the flag, are they preparing for a new war for Armenia? Shahoyan took the opportunity to criticize the ARF, asserting that while the burning of the ARF flag led to the collapse of states, waving it today is a means of saving Artsakh. Shahoyan added that misguiding people into dangerous situations is a betrayal of both the state and its own people. It was later revealed that Bishop Vartanes Abrahamyan, the primate of the Artsakh diocese, was the one who raised the flag in Jerusalem. The Mother See of Holy Echmiadzin strongly condemned an exhibition hosted by the Azerbaijani embassy in Warsaw, denouncing it as a falsification of history. The exhibition falsely claims Armenian heritage sites as Azerbaijani or Albanian, undermining peace efforts in the region. Echmiadzin called on the global community to reject this manipulation of cultural memory. Faith leaders and human rights groups condemned a Vatican university's decision to host the April 10 Azerbaijani state-sponsored conference titled Christianity in Azerbaijan, History and Modernity, arguing that the event offered a platform to Azeri historical revisionists attempting to erase Armenian history from disputed territories between both countries. His Holiness Catholicos Aram I has issued a strong statement condemning the Pontifical Gregorian University's decision to host the conference, stating that the conference, dominated by Azerbaijan, which has been charged with the ethnic cleansing of Armenians, was anti-Armenian, and expressed dismay that such an anti-scholarly event was allowed to take place under the roof of a prominent Catholic educational institution. The Mother See of Holy Echmiadzin issued a statement regretting the Vatican's role in hosting a conference, during which Azerbaijan's propaganda apparatus once again sought to deny the Armenian identity of the historical and cultural heritage of Armenia and Artsakh, distorting historical facts with the intent of eventual appropriation. The Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem joined in, criticizing the Vatican for acting irresponsibly, saying that with this conference, the Holy See in Rome had enabled a strategy designed not only to legitimize present-day territorial claims in the Republic of Armenia, but to overwrite the presence of older civilizations whose roots run deep and whose histories are inconvenient to erase. The Armenian Legal Center for Justice and Human Rights, ALC, has sent an urgent open letter to the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome, condemning its decision to host the conference and warning that the event served as a platform for historical distortion and an attempt to legitimize Azerbaijan's campaign to erase the Armenian Christian presence in Artsakh, in direct violation of international law and academic ethics. The letter emphasized the legal, ethical, and human rights concerns raised by the conference, which is organized in collaboration with the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry. The Armenian Legal Center called on the Pontifical Gregorian University to take immediate corrective measures and to establish an independent review panel of legal, historical, and cultural heritage experts, including Armenian representatives, to assess and prevent future misuse of academic spaces for state propaganda. In addition, more than 300 scholars and professionals from around the world have signed a statement condemning the Vatican's complicity in legitimizing Azerbaijan's cultural erasure of Armenian church history and heritage. In memoriam, we reflect on the legacy of Pope Francis, who passed away leaving behind a lasting imprint on global interfaith dialogue. His 2016 visit to Armenia marked a historic affirmation of unity. At the Dzizernagapert Memorial, he acknowledged the Armenian genocide, calling it the first genocide of the 20th century, reinforcing the Vatican's long-standing solidarity with Armenians. His Holiness Karekin II and His Holiness Aram I have attended the funeral of Pope Francis at the Vatican, accompanied by senior clergy of the Armenian Church. Finally, 2 new names will be added to the Armenian Genocide Memorial Complex: Raphael Lemkin, the creator of the term genocide, and Admiral Louis d'Artige de Fournay, who helped rescue Armenians during the Musadar resistance. The announcement was made by Edita Gzoyan, director of the Armenian Genocide Museum Institute. That's all for tonight's broadcast. Thank you for joining, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. Good night.